Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 646, 646, December the 29th, 2018, Saturday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, you know, 2019 is going to be a very, very entertaining year. Let me give you just one reason why. Here in about 5 days, Madam Botox, Nancy Pelosi, is going to be sworn in as Speaker of the House. She's going to have the gavel. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, at that point, she is going to come fully to terms with the idea that she now has to figure out how to herd those wild cats known as progressive Democrats. And she's got a big problem on her hands because it appears that the largest caucus in the Democratic Congress in the House of Representatives is the Progressive Caucus. They have 95 Democrats in the House signed on to the Progressive Caucus. And they have put out their 3 points for their agenda that they want Madam Botox to put front and center. They want, number 1, the new Green Deal. Number 2, Medicare for all. And number 3, impeachment. Oh, man. Oh, man. It's going to start off very rough for Madam Botox, and it's only going to get worse. How is she going to deal with that? Again, this is not just... This group started out with about 40 people. Right at about the time of the midterm election, they had about 40 people in this caucus. Now that number is up to 95, now making them the largest group within the Democrats in the House. They are the largest caucus there is. And it's believed that they're going to pick up anywhere between 10 and 15 more Democrats in the House who will join the Progressive Caucus, making them the single largest, most powerful caucus in the House for the Democrats, which means Madam Botox is going to have to somehow figure out how to work with these people, because that's 95 votes, maybe more, could be over 100. To get them to vote for the corporate Democrat agenda and support the corporate Democrat agenda, she is going to have to work with them. She is going to have to play ball and try to keep them in line. But what are they telling her right off the top that they want? Well, the new Green Deal. Well, we just learned after the 2016 and 2018 midterms, if anyone saw that list of issues that voters were most concerned about, if you saw that list, it puts climate change way, way down at the bottom of the list. Almost like number 31, 32, 33, something like that. It's almost not even on the radar for most voters. Yet, it's the number one thing that these progressive Democrats want. So, in order to appease them, Nancy Pelosi brought back this group that the Democrats had before when they were in power. It's a panel within the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives that focuses on climate change issues. And it went away after the Republicans won the House. Now it's back. But what Pelosi did, and she did this to try to throw them a bone, but she put a corporate Democrat to head of it. And she also restricted it, this little committee, from having any real power. They have no subpoena power. They have no power to originate or initiate a bill. So this is the game that she's going to try to play. But these progressive Democrats are very unhappy. They're like, hey, yeah, you recreate this committee for us, but you give us no power. We can't write any bill. We can't initiate a bill. We can't even have subpoena power. In other words, she created a do-nothing little committee for them to try to appease them. And it doesn't appear that they're very happy about it, and they're pushing back. So Pelosi knows that as we approach 2020, and believe me, from day one, once Pelosi takes the gavel, the Democrats in the House and the Senate and nationally understand that day one, when the Democrats take over the House of Representatives, they will be in 2020 election mode from day one. Everything that Pelosi is going to do from the time she takes the gavel here in about a week is going to be something having to do with 2020. That's all that she is focused on, is the 2020 election. So this is not a good place to start, knowing good and well that that this climate change issue is not even on the radar screen for most voters. Yet it's the number one thing that these progressive Democrats are going to push her on. And she's going to have to find some way to deal with that. The next thing that they want, of course, Medicare for all. Nancy Pelosi herself, Madam Botox, has herself stated that it's not doable. The money isn't there. The numbers are just astronomical. It doesn't work. And she knows it's extremely unpopular with voters across the country. You will not win any red states, or purple states will turn solid red if you try to drop Medicare for all on them. Many on the left believe this is a winning issue. They think the majority of people support this, but they don't. Madam Botox knows this. If you remember, back in the summer, she was giving a speech out in San Francisco, and they literally had to, the leftists were coming up on the stage and getting all around her and shouting her down because she was talking about, she was asked a question about Medicare for all, and she went on to explain how it's really just not doable, not something that they can do. It's not politically viable. It's not financially doable, this whole 9 yards. And so she came under attack, not physical attack, but certainly very vocal. The crowd in the room was very vocal and screaming at her and yelling at her, and they had to whisk her out the back door. At some point, they started fearing for her safety because people started coming up out of the audience, getting up on the stage, and were crowding around her and shouting her down. They had to get her out of there. So she understands very well that Medicare for all is another loser. So here she is. She's got to juggle this new Green Deal, which she knows is totally unpopular, and Medicare for all, which she knows is a total loser. And from day one, she's only focused on the 2020 elections. So these are very difficult. And then you get the third one, impeachment. She already knows how that works. And she knows there's nothing there. Pelosi knows there's nothing there. That's why she said, hey, we got to wait for Uncle Bob to put out his report, and we'll see what happens. She knows there's nothing there. But they're going to push her into impeachment hearings. And again, this is the largest caucus in the House for the Democrats. These 95 Democrats, which could swell to over 100 here very shortly, will be the largest Democratic voting bloc within the Congress that Nancy Pelosi is going to have to deal with. Believe me, it's going to create major headaches for her and a lot of entertainment for all of us watching Nancy try to figure out how to herd these wild cats. Should be quite entertaining. And we'll be covering every bit of it. Trump is willing to shut down the border. He also says he will cut aid to Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala because he says they're not really doing anything for us, but taking our money. Well, that's a pretty bold move. And again, it's another option that he has. I think he can find the $5 billion or even more for the wall funding. He's determined to have another 250 miles of wall built before 2020. He does have the authority, the executive authority, to shut down the border over national security. And that would really make the issue even bigger. It would become almost like a daily crisis, like the Iranian hostage crisis, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 type thing. And that's exactly the type of thing that they can run out of the White House is crisis on the border day 1, crisis on the border day 2. He can shut down the border. He can send the troops down there to close the border. And I don't think he's bluffing. I think he will do it if he's pushed. And I think it's a political winner. And as far as cutting, we don't give a lot of money. Well, $500 million is a lot of money. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but compared to a $4 trillion budget. But that's about how much we send to Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. About $500 million. Not a tremendous amount of money, but it certainly would be better kept in our coffers than sent down there to them, because after all, Trump's right. They're not doing anything to assist us in the problem. In fact, they're probably letting all their the worst of the worst out of their prisons and putting them in these caravans and probably trying to get rid of them, if the truth is known. So that's a very bold move by Trump. And, like I say, I think he's digging in. I think he knows that this is a winning issue for him. And as long as they don't bobble it, the Republicans, you have to watch out, because he is going to have the support of Republicans. If he loses support of the Republicans, he could find himself pretty much standing there all alone, and that would not be pretty at all. It would be politically very, very bad. He's setting himself up in a position that's very, very dangerous, because we don't know at this point how many of these Republicans that we can trust, how many of them will turn on him, stick a knife in his back. But he must feel pretty good that the majority of Republicans are going to stay together and stick by him on this, especially if he goes to the extent of shutting down the border, which I believe he absolutely will. I think he's looking for a fight, and I think this is a fight he thinks he's going to win, so I think he's going to, go full bore on it. I don't think he's shying away from it at all. He doesn't appear to be. And it's a very good strategy. They just have to make sure they handle the PR around it. These types of things, these shutdowns and these types of fights, you can be right on the issue and you can lose the fight if you lose the PR campaign. The PR campaign is almost as important as the issue itself. Okay, so this is why I'm placing so much emphasis on this, and I hope he understands that. I'm pretty sure he does, being a media PR guy, understanding things the way he does. I'm a little disappointed that we're not seeing more, that it's almost like he's having to be the one-man PR guy sitting there on Twitter, but he's doing a hell of a job. If you've seen some of his tweets in the last 24 hours, he's doing a hell of a job, but, it needs to be directed from the White House. It needs to be directed from the White House in cooperation with a group of Republicans who are together. A couple dozen Republicans who will work with the White House and put together a PR strategy and to hammer it every single day. Because the PR battle is usually determines who wins the government shutdown game. And the Democrats will certainly have the media on their side. But Trump has got the majority of voters on his side. Ultimately, in the long term, for election purposes or re-election purposes or getting votes, it's a winner, regardless of how it plays out. But you don't want to lose the PR battle, because losing the PR battle could force you to cave. And if you cave, your constituents, it sucks the air out of them, and it takes away their enthusiasm to want to vote or support Republican candidates in the next election. So you got to be careful how you play the PR game, and I certainly hope they have some sort of a plan. Well, we have Merkel, who's on her way out the door with a big fat German boot in her ass, pushing her out the door. She's sticking around as long as she possibly can, just like Paul Ryan did. But Merkel is on her way out the door, and she's giving a speech in Germany a couple of days ago, and she basically says, again, we've heard this before, that nation states must today be prepared to give up their sovereignty. Nation states must today be prepared to give up their sovereignty. Now, what jumps to my mind right away when I read that quote is this is exactly what Farage has been saying at the UN for years now. He's been harping on how the UN and the EU is all about eliminating nation states in Europe. But they will never come out and actually admit that. But now that the pressure is on, you are seeing them. Macron made a similar comment. Not the exact words, but meaning the same thing. So here you have Merkel basically saying nation states must be willing to give up their sovereignty. And I got to think that this is only going to inflame the forces against her and against globalism in Europe. So I'm not really sure what these people are thinking, whether it's Merkel or Macron or any of these EU technocrats, when they, I mean, the mask is pretty much lifted. They used to deny all this. Now they're essentially out there asserting it. So maybe it's last ditch. Maybe it's all coming unraveled. Maybe they think this is the right PR play. I don't know. But just very interesting to watch how things are playing out in the EU, which I believe is beginning. We're looking at the beginning of the end for the EU. And I think that what we're probably going to see in the UK is hard Brexit. And if that occurs, that's going to trigger a lot of things. And so not only is 2019 going to be a very entertaining topsy-turvy year, a really wild year, it's going to be wild on both sides of the pond. Well, the cop killer out in California, the illegal alien, has been arrested. And it's a very sad story. This cop had like a 5-month-old kid, real young guy. He was a legal immigrant to this country, killed by an illegal, just a real bad guy. When you look at this guy's criminal record, he never should have been in this country. Absolutely never should have been in this country. And again, this is something that should be highlighted. And these things happen, these types of felonies happen every day in this country by an illegal. This is why I said there needs to be a PR campaign run right out of the White House where every single day they point out another felon and another event just like this one. So hopefully people are paying attention, and this plays into Trump's narrative. And he was certainly tweeting about it, as was Sarah Sanders and some others. But glad they caught this guy. And I don't know what you can do to him. I mean, the death penalty is not good enough for this guy, because there's nothing you can do to bring back the person he killed, who now the little kid, 5-month-old kid, is going to grow up without a father. It's very sad. He was working overtime to get extra money for Christmas. That's really sad to hear about. And, you know, you would think that these types of things, common sense would prevail, but Democrats really don't care. They just do not care. This is funny. I don't know how many of you saw the video of Mad Maxine Waters. She was vacationing in the Bahamas, and while vacationing in the Bahamas, she attended a parade. So her and her husband are sitting there watching the parade, and the parade floats go by, and along comes a Donald Trump float. A Donald Trump float. And you can't really see the look on her face because the camera view is from behind her. You see her and her husband sitting down there. You can't see her face. But my guess is she wasn't happy to see that Donald Trump float in the Bahamas. It's like Mad Max can't get away from the Trumpster. That's hilarious. Lindsey Graham has written an open letter to the Democrats. A very short open letter. And it says, no wall money, no deal. Obama's former advisor to Syria is saying that Trump did the right thing on pulling out of Syria. Yes, he did. And the sooner he gets out of Pipelanistan, the better we'll be off there as well. We have the Air Force coming out and making a statement from their press office saying that there was nothing wrong with airmen getting their hats signed. True, as I explained yesterday. We have Giuliani on Fox News saying he is not answering any more questions, verbally, written, or anything else. And he believes that Mueller should be investigated. Yeah, I mean, it's good that they're finally getting caught up to the game, getting up to speed, but unfortunately they've given Uncle Bob too much credibility at this point already. But yes, but you remember I did the video the day after Trump answered those questions, and I said, you know what'll follow this? You know, Uncle Bob said, yeah, well, answer these questions and we'll wrap everything up. I said that was BS. I said the very next thing will happen, these 10 questions will lead Uncle Bob to want to ask more questions, and probably some of them in person. He might even go to a judge to try and force it. Exactly what I said happened. So now Giuliani's just saying he's not answering any more questions. Well, you shouldn't answer the other ones. Every time you do anything to cooperate with Mueller, you give him credibility, and he should have none. You can't, on one hand, go out and say, yeah, it's a witch hunt, he's drumming a bunch of stuff up, it's this and that, and then turn around and cooperate with him as if he's, legit. He's not. He's not legit. And they gave him way too much credibility, and that's why it's so hard to get rid of him now. From day one, they should have never cooperated with anything. They should have called him out on day one and said exactly what this is. Very, very bad legal maneuver. Trump needs me. Trump needs me in D.C. Devin Nunes. So we talked a little bit about 2 or 3 videos ago about the fact that Nunes and the Goodlatte Committee wanted to have all their interviews released, made public at the end of the year. Of course, then I reported again a couple days later that Rodenstein is basically gone to Uncle Bob, and now Uncle Bob's apparently killing that deal, saying, no, we're not really going to be able to release a lot of this stuff from these interviews, from these hearings and all that. So they're not going to release a lot of this stuff. That's pretty much what we thought. But that has prompted Devin Nunes to make a very clear statement. And it is basically this. And this is not really new information. It's just a different way of looking at things. But Nunes is saying that it is now clear, and I think it has been for some time, that Michael Isikoff, who was the Yahoo reporter, that Michael Isikoff was personally recruited by the rotten Reverend Clinton. Isikoff wrote the story that was sourced by Christopher Steele, that was used by the FBI to get the Carter Page FISA and a FISA to spy on Trump Tower. Now that's new. It's been suspected, but he's never said that. We know it was used to get the Carter Page FISA, but we didn't know that it also was a FISA to spy on Trump Tower. So basically, the way that this worked out was the rotten Reverend Clinton hires Perkins Coie. Then Perkins Coie is essentially paying Christopher Steele, and they bring in Fusion GPS. And it really looks a lot like the rotten Reverend Clinton put all this together, all these players together. She put these players together. She makes it sound like she hired a law firm and then just went on about her business and they did everything else. No. It's being pretty clear that the Right Reverend hired Perkins Coie to be the middleman. She told them, here's my guy Christopher Steele. Contact him. He'll be working with you and Confusion GPS. They're going to be the players that you're going to use. This was all directed by the Right Reverend Clinton. Not only that, we now know that once Confusion GPS was doing their work, mingling with Bruce Orr, he's shoveling information into the FBI, as is Mr. Sussman from Perkins Coie. Then along comes Isikoff, and Isikoff recruited by the rotten Reverend Clinton to come out and write that timely article directly from Christopher Steele as his source, and that was followed immediately by the rotten Reverend Clinton's campaign releasing that press release on September the 24th of 2016 promoting the Steele dossier. And in fact, almost all the paragraphs in that press release were directly from the Isikoff piece. We know that the first meeting with Christopher Steele and Isikoff was hosted by Perkins Coie. So you can see that these are just not people who just happen to cross each other's path. Someone put Perkins Coie, Fusion GPS, and Isikoff together, and they did it. The timing of it proves that there was someone directing all this, someone directing it, and the person directing it was the rotten Reverend Clinton. The rotten Reverend Clinton was directing every bit of that. It's becoming quite obvious. And if we ever get to the bottom of this rat hole, That's what we're going to find is the big fat rat who was running this operation, and I mean micromanaging this operation, was the rotten Reverend Clinton. And I'll tell you something else. We're going to find out that Podesta was lying his ass off when he told the Congress that he didn't learn about the dossier until after it was published by BuzzFeed. That's got to be total BS. No way. Again, another guy who's hands-on with everything, just like the rotten Reverend herself. No way that all this is going on in the late summer and fall of 2016, and Podesta knows nothing about it. That's just can't be true. Cannot be true. He was lying too. All these people, lying liars, must be held accountable. Public pressure is how we're going to do this. Unbelievable. Well, let me give you a couple reasons that we should be happy and optimistic about 2019. Number one reason, it's going to be extremely entertaining watching Madam Botox trying to manage these progressives in the House, who are now the largest bloc of Democrats in the House, the largest caucus there. She's going to have her hands full. They're going to embarrass her constantly, put her into horrible positions because they're going to try to use their leverage with the votes that they hold to force her into a far left-wing agenda, much farther to the left than she wants to appear when she's trying to focus totally on 2020. She is going to have her hands full, and it's going to be a laugh watching it. But also, it's very, very, you should be very happy and optimistic that we are rid of Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan. Thank God he's gone. Probably no one single-handedly worked against us more than Paul Ryan. He's the one who was throwing the wrench into the spokes and trying to unravel the Spygate criminal conspiracy. Paul Ryan. Make no mistake about it. We can also celebrate that Senator Magoo is gone. Well, he's gone. As well as Flake, Jeff the Flake. And, of course, Bob Corker, all gone. Replaced with pro-Trump Republicans, and we now have a 53-47 majority in the Senate. That's another reason to be very optimistic. That means that they can kill all the bad stuff that comes from Nancy Pelosi's far left-wing nutcases. Whittaker has recently been cleared to oversee the Mueller witch hunt. This just happened last week. Let's give him a little bit of time and see what he does. But even if they try to handcuff him, we should be having Barr being being sworn in as Attorney General probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'd say less than 2 months. Before the end of February, Barr will probably be sworn in. We've already heard and seen some of the statements he's made about Uncle Bob, the investigation. He said that there's a lot more reason to investigate the Clinton Foundation than there is the Trump campaign. He's been pretty vocal about being opposed to a lot of things Uncle Bob's about, and he knows Uncle Bob personally very well. In other words, knows he's a rat. He knows exactly who Uncle Bob is. Now, am I putting a lot of faith in these people? No, not really. I'm still, like I said yesterday, I put my faith in Trump and the citizens who will eventually get so fed up they'll just demand. They will demand some action. The numbers are in from the midterm elections. The Democrats outspent the Republicans by $385 million. $385 million is how badly we were outspent. That's a lot in midterm elections. That's a lot. It's enough, $400 million in a midterm election is enough to swing a lot of seats. And, of course, we learned about vote harvesting that they were doing, which probably, I'd say, of the 40-some-odd seats they gained, it looks like about 30 of them came from vote harvesting. Had they not been doing this vote harvesting, going door to door and collecting votes, they might not have won the House. They may not have won the House if not for the vote harvesting. Even with the $385 million, they might not have won the House. It was the vote harvesting. They picked off 15, 20 seats. 11 or 12, 11, 12, 13 of them in California alone. And it continued. There was a lot of corrupt counting going on, and I'm very disappointed in the Republican National Committee and the way they handled that entire thing. I didn't see hardly any fight out of them at all about what was done. And I worry about their competency. I worry about their competency. Whether or not they're even... I mean, if they can't stop the Democrats from vote harvesting, then they better figure out how to do it themselves. If they can vote harvest and they're going to be... and they did it in 2016 and they're not held accountable, then that would tell me, if I worked at the RNC, guess what? I guess it's okay to do this. It's really not, but the Democrats did it, had no problem. Nobody... it's like not like it's a secret what they did. That should tell anyone at the RNC that, guess what? You better start right now putting your plans in place to doing vote harvesting yourself. This idea that Republicans, well, you know, we're going to play it clean. Yeah, you play it clean. The Democrats they roll around in the mud and get all dirty, but they win. The Republicans got to quit doing that. They need to watch Trump. He doesn't play that way. Trump plays dirty too. They want to roll around in the mud. He rolls around with them, and he wins. When you fight these people, you can beat them. But if you don't fight them, you'll never beat them. That's why one of the biggest problems we've had is Republicans, particularly the leadership. Fortunately, they're gone. Most of them are gone. Let's see what happens. Now, as you know, I'm very, very interested in this envelope thing that happened at the Bush funeral. It's kind of one of these things that's kind of conspiratorial, yes, but you know, a lot of things people say, what was in the envelopes, or who's behind it, or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy theory going around, which is exactly what happens when you have something like this go on and nobody really knows. Everybody starts taking wild guesses, and it's very conspiratorial. That's fine. But what is not conspiratorial, or what is not a crazy conspiracy theory, is that a certain group, a small group of selected, what appears to be selected elites at that Bush funeral, got envelopes that rattled them to some degree or another. That's not in question. That is not in question. So I continue to kind of follow up on that a little bit every day. I don't have a lot of time to spend on it, and there's not really a lot out there. There's just, nobody really seems to know. There's a lot of guesses, and Q, of course, always will have, you know, things to say about it. But as far as any hard evidence of anyone who knows anyone who got the envelope, who knows has any inside information, it doesn't appear that anyone's talking about that. But what's more important about this, and what I've been noticing the last week and a half or so since this all went down, is that no one is really talking about it. No one in the corporate media. But you don't even see the late night comedians or anyone talking about it. I mean, this is purely to a certain group of people on the internet, alternative media, talking about it. We Are Change, Luke Rudowski's talking about it. I talk about it. I haven't really heard H.A. talk about it. Maybe he has, I don't know. Haven't heard Styx talk about it. So, I don't know. Maybe they did. I don't watch all their videos. But what we do know is that this was a really strange event. And keep in mind, my friends, they know. The corporate media knows. Fox News knows. Hannity knows. Tucker Carlson knows. They have seen this. There's no way that you can be on the internet and not know. I haven't even seen it like on Gateway Pundit or even Daily Caller, or places you might see something like that. Maybe it's been there, I just haven't seen it. But it's what's most amazing about all this is that we know the event happened. We know it was a fairly major deal because of the looks on their faces and the reactions. So we know it was something fairly major, but no one's talking about it. It's like total crickets from the people who you would expect might talk about it. And that's probably the most curious thing of all to me, is how much it's being clamped down on. But I've also come to the conclusion now that I believe that they all got different messages because of the length of time that some of them spent looking at it or reading it, and the length of time others took looking at it. Like Jeb Bush, he didn't have time to read a whole lot. I mean, he literally looked down, and it was all within 2 seconds. It was there. He had it. Whatever he saw, within 2 seconds, he had it. With Clinton, Obama, and some of these other people, they kind of looked like they were reading something for like 3, 4, 5 seconds. Not Bush. Boom, it was almost instant when he just looked at it. Almost like it was an image. I don't know. We'll keep watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you guys. Bye.